Hi. Official recaps here.
In the year 2012, the American economy collapses. Unemployment hits record high and crime rates spiral out of control. The prison system reaches breaking point, so private corporations now run all correctional facilities for profit. A series of cage fights from Terminal Island Penitentiary are streamed live online, making inmates fighting to the death a viral sensation. But soon the audience grows disinterested and starts to demand more, giving rise to the popular television program Death Race, in which prisoners compete against one another in specially modified cars to the death in an attempt to win their release. There are only 2 cars left in the race today. Machine Gun Joe, Frankenstein's oldest rival, drives one, while the other is led by the masked prisoner and his navigator, Case. The weapons in Frank's car aren't working for some reason, even though they are both getting close to the finish line and willing to stop at nothing to win. In an act of desperation, he lets go of the rear shield of the car, hitting Joe and giving Frank a brief advantage, but Joe is still in control of the offensive. When Frank crosses the finish line at the same moment that Joe does, Case ejects herself from the car, winning but exploding in the process. Case knows Joe will destroy them and wants out, but Frank won't let Joe win. A few days later, ex-convict and industrial worker Jensen Ames learns that his steel mill is closing and that the workers aren't even getting paid what they owe him in full. The anti-riot police show up as the workers become agitated and start beating them up for the smallest of infractions. Seeing his colleagues suffer injuries prompts Jensen to enter the fray and beat some of the cops in retaliation. When he arrives home, night has already fallen. Jensen greets his wife and goes upstairs to check on his child, not realizing that a masked assailant is using this opportunity to break into the house and murder his wife. The man makes a shooting motion with his gloved hand, knocks Jensen unconscious, places the murder weapon in Jensen's hand, and walks away. A few moments later, Jensen awakens to find himself being arrested by the police for his wife's murder. After being moved to Terminal Island Prison 6 months later, Jensen is met by guard Ulrich, who gives him a freezing water spray, lets another police officer hit him, and puts him in a cell with 3 other inmates who plan to beat him up. Ulrich visits him in an attempt to enjoy watching him get into trouble, but Jensen is a skilled fighter who has already knocked out all of his cellmates. The following morning, while being watched by Coach, Gunner, and Lists, Jensen goes to the Chow Hall for breakfast. Lists recognizes Jensen as the former record-holder driver who ended his career. When Pachenko and his friend approach Jensen to provoke him, first by spitting on his food, then by calling him a woman killer and a child abuser, the hall abruptly becomes silent. In response, Jensen leaps to strike Pachenko, but the police soon intervene and take Jensen to see the prison warden, Claire Hennessy. She wants Jensen to become the next Frankenstein because she's seen his record and knows he's an amazing driver. Since no one is aware that the real one passed away on the operating table following his final race, anyone could take his place behind the mask. Hennessy doesn't want the world to know that Frank is no longer alive because she needs the legend to live on and boost the ratings, which have sharply declined since the real Frank passed away. Frank was a favorite of the audience and a very inspirational legend. Jensen would only need to win one more race because Frankenstein had already won 4, according to the rules, which state that you earn your freedom after winning 5 races. Jensen is still not sure if he should risk his life for this, but Hennessy threatens to put him in isolation if he doesn't agree, forcing him to keep her secret from others. With no other option, Jensen has to comply. After that, he's brought to the prison's auto shop, where he meets Coach and his crew, who look after Frankenstein's car's mechanics and will teach Jensen the fundamentals. In addition to the fact that no one helps any other team and that each team has its own pit, Hennessy has been working on a secret project for a month in a large shop. Hennessy has complete control over the prison, so only his team and a select few guards will be aware that Jensen is the new Frankenstein. Coach then gives him a tour of the vehicle he will be operating, a modified Mustang V8 Fastback. It comes with a variety of both defensive and offensive gadgets, but it doesn't get loaded with ammo until race day so that prisoners can't use it to try to escape. The only way out of the prison is through a small bridge, which would be flooded with police cars and helicopters at the first sign of a prison break. It is impossible to do so anyhow because the prison is located on an island. After getting to know the vehicle, Jensen and the group resume their conversation in the prison's backyard. The race consists of 3 stages. The first 2 require him to eliminate as many rivals as possible, and the third requires speed in order to cross the finish line. Every driver has a navigator companion, which is made up of girls who are taken from the women's facility. The one exception to this rule is Joe, who prefers to have a fellow team member as navigator instead of a girl because he goes through them so fast, it makes the audience squeamish. List starts telling Jensen about the most important drivers then, who are all in the yard with them. There's 14K, a Triad member and MIT graduate, Hector Grimm, a certified psychopath that worships Hennessy, Slovo Pachenko, leader of the Aryan Brotherhood in the prison, and Travis Colt, a disgraced ex-NASCAR superstar. Their conversation is abruptly cut off when Joe and his group approach to make fun of Jensen and leave Frankenstein a note stating that they are the only competitors in this race. As some prisoners who have been on work detail are being brought back in a van, Jensen notices something strange about their wrists. They are wearing GPS tracking bracelets, and it dawns on him that the man who killed his wife was also wearing one. Jensen is given Frank's clothes, mask, and even his ring to wear on the day of the first race stage, and his very presence wins back all the viewers the show had lost. Coach advises him not to speak to other drivers because Frank didn't. It was part of his charm. However, since the car's windows are made of mirrored glass and Case is also aware of the secret, he is free to remove his mask inside. The race begins a moment later, and although drivers still attempt to push one another off the track, the first 3 laps are not particularly violent as weapons do not come into play until the second. Thanks to Case's local knowledge, Jensen finds it simple to go head-to-head with Joe early on and overtake him for first place when Case identifies a shortcut. Hennessy then activates the shield and weapons, which are manholes in the ground that a driver must pass over with all 4 wheels in order to turn on their vehicle's electronics. Grimm kills a minor driver by pushing his car against the death heads when Hennessy activates them as well. Soon, there is open fire on the track. After hurling oil at Joe's vehicle, he also makes him fall behind, but Joe runs him over and 14K pushes him off the course with a missile, causing him to lose the race. Jensen succeeds in activating the weapons in the meantime, but the machine gun becomes jammed. Case climbs on the car's hood to fix it, which prompts the other gunmen to focus their fire on her. However, thanks to Jensen's skill, he manages to avoid them all, and Case makes it back to the passenger seat without incident. Colt gives Jensen a defense manhole, but just like with Frank, all of his defense mechanisms fail, and the rear shield doesn't last very long. Fortunately, Jensen comes up with a quick plan and forces Case to unhook the napalm and sit on his lap so he can launch her chair while it's resting on the napalm. Colt's car is struck, and since it is now covered in napalm, Case hurls the lighter from the vehicle at it, setting it on fire and disqualifying him from the race. Now that Colt has left, Jensen challenges Joe face-to-face once more, but he is cut off from his progress by Pachenko, who gives him the same wave as the man who killed his wife did before walking away. Joe takes advantage of this by pushing Jensen's car back, which puts him in last place and gives Pachenko the lead. There are 6 drivers left for the second stage, and 3 drivers are dead. The fact that the devices are functioning properly when Coach and his men inspect the car after the race doesn't explain why they wouldn't activate when necessary. Jensen visits Hennessy and informs her that he will no longer be racing because he believes Pachenko killed his wife and that the whole thing was a plot to frame him in order to replace Frankenstein with a new driver. She doesn't admit to it, but she does show him a picture of his daughter in the foster home she's gone to, reminding Jensen that he should play along if he wants to see his daughter again. Not being able to do anything about it, Jensen goes back to the yard, where he chats with Coach and asks him why he doesn't wear a number. Coach explains he is technically not a prisoner anymore. He qualified for parole 3 years ago, but he couldn't bring himself to cross the gate. He also doesn't believe Jensen killed his wife. Later in the evening, while working on the car, Jensen sees Pachenko passing by and decides to follow him to his pit, where he gets captured by Pachenko's team. He punches Jensen a couple of times before grabbing a heavy tool to smash his head, not caring if he has Hennessy's protection, but he's stopped by Lists, who stabs him on his back with a pen. Jensen takes advantage of the distraction to grab a metal shard from the ground and stab his captor, then he knocks him and his friend out before going after Pachenko. He punches him, throws him around, and hits him with various boxes until Pachenko admits Hennessy made him kill his wife and Ulrich was the one to take him there. When Jensen gets ready to kill him in revenge, Ulrich shows up with another guard and stops the fight. Pachenko makes the same hand gesture at Jensen the day before the start of the second stage of the race, taunting him with it. But rather than giving in to the provocation, Jensen deliberately starts driving slowly and uses a tunnel so he can speak with Case in private. He questions whether she killed Frank because he thinks it's strange that the car's electronics failed to work correctly for 2 races in a row. If she doesn't respond, he threatens to kick her out of the vehicle. In order to gain her freedom from Hennessy, Case acknowledges that she tampered with Frank's rear weapons. Hennessy's objective was to keep Frank in prison by making him lose, not to kill him. That was an accident brought on by his continued attempts to win without any weapons. Instead, the race was intended to be seen by the general public. With his answer in hand, Jensen picks up the pace and effortlessly returns to the race, putting Joe out of his mind for the time being in order to pursue Pachenko. Following their fruitless attempts to shove one another off the track, Jensen proceeds and seizes the weapons manhole rather than the defense. Jensen surprises everyone by abruptly turning the car around and opening fire on Pachenko while driving backward, confusing everyone with the weapons being at the front of the vehicle. Once he has sufficiently damaged the other vehicle, he reverses course and strikes the smoke, causing Pachenko to collide with a concrete barrier. Then, in retaliation for Pachenko killing his wife, Jensen stops his car and exits to confront him, breaking his neck. Hennessy decides it's time to unveil the multi-weapon tanker truck she's been working on for a while, the Dreadnought, after Joe decides to switch navigators in the middle of the race. This truck kills 2 minor competitors right away because it is so powerful and catches up with the drivers quickly. It also gets to go inside the buildings because it is the warden's property, which enables it to go faster and finish first in the race. After gradually killing 14K's navigator, the Dreadnought takes hold of his car using chains and fires until it explodes, leaving only Jensen and Joe. Without a well-thought-out plan, they are unable to defeat such a monster, so Jensen asks Lists to attach his communicator to Joe's vehicle, and they agree to cooperate. They try to avoid any oncoming attacks by positioning their cars to the sides of the truck. When a trap manhole appears in front of them, they each hit it with 2 wheels, obtaining the necessary 4 to activate it. As a result, the truck collides with the tap and it rises. Now that the race's second stage has concluded, Jensen and Joe will be the only drivers advancing to the third. Ulrich and Hennessy, in the meantime, determine that since Jensen can still wear the Frankenstein mask in the future, they must murder him. The next day, just prior to the race, Ulrich plants a bomb beneath Jensen's vehicle, and Hennessy uses his speech about racing as their life's work to divert attention from everyone. Jensen understands that they always rig the races to eliminate anyone who could win for the 5th time, which is why no one has ever succeeded in doing so before, and that means he won't be allowed to win today either, when she says that this might be the first time someone may win their freedom with a 5th victory. After hearing this conclusion, Coach decides to show Jensen a crucial detail from a video of Grimm's death once they are permitted to return to the auto shop. This offers him an idea for a plan, so he asks Lists to fill his car with a half-gallon reserve before heading to Joe's pit to ask him to work with him once more. Hennessy comes to see Jensen while he is dressing like Frank. She gives him his release documents and a fresh offer, and if he accepts, she wants him to stay in jail and keep being Frankenstein because the track is where he belongs. He's not a good father figure, she says, and he couldn't provide a decent life for his daughter, so deciding to stay would be a truly selfless act of love. Without responding to her yet, Jensen puts the release papers in his pocket and heads to the race. Case acknowledges that Hennessy spoke to her as well and asked her to stop Jensen if he was going to win when he gets in his car, but he doesn't worry about it. Ulrich takes control of the manholes at the start of the race, causing them to only open when Joe passes over them. As soon as he can, he starts shooting at Jensen, severely hurting him to the point where Jensen drops his shield. Joe, though, avoids it with ease because he already knows the trick from when Frank did the same. To keep the audience interested, Hennessy activates a defense manhole for Jensen to enter, but Joe fires a rocket at it, destroying it. He fires all of his remaining rockets at Jensen, who avoids them and allows them to strike a wall. This wall, which stood behind Grimm at the time of his death, has already been compromised by the previous explosion. So today Jensen and Joe have been calculating their attacks for them to land on the weak spot, and now the rockets hit it for a final blow that opens a hole and allows them to escape the prison. Furious, Hennessy ends the stream and sends all available cops after them before pressing the bomb detonator, but nothing happens. Coach and his men had already removed the bomb from the car and deactivated it. Joe and Jensen make it to the bridge, but the police cars are getting closer, so it's time to pull the next part of his plan. Jensen releases that extra half-gallon reserve tank, which hits the cars behind them, causing an explosion in a wall of fire that prevents any other cars from chasing them. Both convicts manage to cross the bridge gates and take 2 different roads so that all the helicopters only follow Jensen, who is the most important of the 2. Case agrees to assist Jensen with the final portion of his plan as Joe leaves because she owes it to Frank and Hennessy has already given her the release documents, so they will be required to release her. Jensen hops off the car under the shadows of the construction cranes and hides there while Case takes over the wheel as they pass by. She barely gets to go a few miles before the helicopters stop her with a wall of fire, but she's wearing Frank's mask and clothes when she exits the car with her hands raised. Since most people are unaware of the identity exchange, Jensen is able to escape and meet Joe so they can board a freight train together. However, the police arrest her and return her to the prison. Ulrich reports that congratulations are already being sent and that the ratings are through the roof back in the prison offices. When Hennessy opens the gift box he had brought, underneath Jensen's car is the bomb Ulrich had placed, and when it explodes, both of them are killed. Coach is seen pressing the detonator outside on the track, Mexico, after 6 months. Joe and Jensen have established a new life in Santa Rosalia. They work together as mechanics in their own auto shop, and Jensen has regained custody of his daughter. Case visits them too after her release papers finally get processed, bringing with her a racing car for them to check out.
If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.